along for the ride.
Welcome to the Solar Coaster, the wild ride through the solar industry told by the people living it every day. I'm Anna Covert.
And I'm Alex Herrera.
How about this for a big idea? The future of clean energy might depend on how well we can track where our materials come from. Today, we're diving into the new IRS and Treasury guidance that's shaking up the clean energy industry.
Oh, I've been following this. It's all tied to the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, right? The guidance is supposed to help project developers figure out if they qualify for those big tax credits.
Exactly. And it all comes down to something called the Material Assistance Cost Ratio, or MACR. It's a way to measure how much of a project's materials or components come from prohibited foreign entities, PFEs, or foreign entities of concern, FEOCs.
So this is about making sure clean energy projects aren't overly reliant on materials from countries or entities that the U.S. government sees as problematic. Is that the gist?
That's the core of it. The government wants to incentivize domestic production and reduce reliance on foreign supply chains that could pose security risks. But the way they're implementing this is pretty detailed, and it's raising a lot of questions in the industry.
All right, let's break it down. What does the guidance actually say about these thresholds and how they work?
For projects starting construction in 2026, there are specific minimum thresholds for the percentage of direct costs that must come from non-PFE materials. For example, solar installations need to hit a 40% threshold. Energy storage technology has to meet 55%. And eligible components sold in 2026 must reach 50%.
So if a solar project doesn't meet that 40% threshold, it can't qualify for the tax credits. That's a pretty big deal. What happens if a project doesn't make the cut?
Well, if a project doesn't meet the thresholds, it's out of luck when it comes to these tax credits. And those credits are a game changer. They can make or break a project's financial viability. That's why this guidance is so critical. It's giving developers the rules they need to follow, but it's also creating a lot of complexity.
Yeah, I can see how this could get complicated fast. What about the actual calculation of the material assistance cost ratio? How does that work?
The MACR is essentially the percentage of total direct costs for manufactured products and components used in a project that are not sourced from PFEs. The guidance outlines specific rules for calculating this ratio. For example, steel or iron components that aren't treated as manufactured products are excluded from the calculation. And costs for something called qualified interconnection property, or QIP, have to be calculated separately.
Wait, what's qualified interconnection property?
Good question. QIP refers to the equipment and facilities needed to connect a clean energy project to the grid. So things like transformers or substations. The guidance says that even if the QIP costs don't meet the non-PFE threshold, the project itself can still qualify for tax credits, as long as the rest of the project meets the requirements. But the reverse isn't true. If the project doesn't qualify, then the QIP costs can't qualify either.
So there's a bit of a balancing act there. And what about these safe harbor provisions I've been hearing about? How do they play into all this?
The safe harbor provisions are designed to make compliance a little easier. There are 3 of them: the identification safe harbor, the cost percentage safe harbor, and the certification safe harbor.
All right, walk me through each one.
Sure, the identification safe harbor lets taxpayers use IRS-provided tables to figure out which manufactured products and components need to be tracked for the MACR calculation. If something isn't listed in these tables, it can be disregarded, which simplifies the process.
That sounds helpful. What about the cost percentage safe harbor?
This one allows taxpayers to use fixed, assigned cost percentages from IRS tables for each identified non-PFE manufactured product or component. So instead of trying to figure out the exact cost of every single item, you can just use the percentages provided by the IRS.
Got it. And the certification safe harbor?
The certification safe harbor lets taxpayers rely on sworn certifications from their suppliers. These certifications can state that a specific product wasn't produced by a PFE, or they can specify the dollar amount of the product's costs that are non-PFE. As long as the taxpayer doesn't know or have reason to know that the certification is inaccurate, they're in the clear.
That sounds like a lot of trust being placed in suppliers. Are there any risks there?
Definitely. If a certification turns out to be inaccurate and the taxpayer knew or should have known about it, they could face penalties or lose their tax credits. So there's still a need for due diligence, even with these safe harbors.
Speaking of risks, what's been the reaction from the clean energy industry so far? Are people optimistic about this guidance or are there concerns?
It's a mix of both. Some industry experts have praised the guidance for providing clarity and practical tools, like the safe harbor tables. For example, Joshua Morris from Novogradac said the IRS provided helpful examples and even created a decision tree graphic to help project owners figure out whether an entity qualifies as a PFE.
That sounds promising, but I'm guessing not everyone is thrilled.
Correct. Brian Alperin from Foss and Company called the safe harbor provision a huge practical simplifier, but he also pointed out that it could make it harder for retrofit and incremental production facilities to qualify for tax credits. He also raised concerns about the 6-year assessment window for errors in MACR calculations, which could complicate project indemnity and insurance.
6 years. That's a long time to be looking over your shoulder.
It is, and Roan Resch, formerly of the Solar Energy Industries Association, echoed those concerns. He warned developers not to wait for final guidance and to start modeling their material assistance costs now, especially for projects targeting a 2026 construction start. He also predicted that the rules will only get more complex over time.
So, the takeaway here is that while the guidance provides some clarity, it also raises new questions and challenges. It sounds like developers and manufacturers have their work cut out for them.
Absolutely. The interim guidance is a step in the right direction, but it's not the final word. The IRS and Treasury are still accepting public comments until March 2026, and they plan to issue proposed regulations based on this guidance. So there's still a lot of uncertainty.
Well, it sounds like anyone in the clean energy space needs to stay on top of this. Thanks for breaking it down. Any final thoughts?
Just that this is a critical moment for the clean energy industry. The stakes are high, but so are the opportunities. If developers and manufacturers can navigate these new rules effectively, they stand to benefit from significant tax incentives while contributing to a more sustainable future.
Well said. All right, let's keep an eye on this and see how it evolves. Thanks for the deep dive. All right, let's switch gears here. Anna, you mentioned something earlier that I think the viewers should know.
Good point. Let's get into it. Okay, so here's something to think about. Adding 78 gigawatts of solar and 54 gigawatts of battery storage to the PJM grid could cut system costs by 20% and improve reliability through 2035. That's not just a minor tweak, that's transformative.
That's a huge shift. And what's fascinating is that this isn't just some pie in the sky idea. The study you're referencing actually lays out a roadmap for how this could happen, right? It's not just about the numbers, it's about the policies, the technology, and the collaboration needed to make it work.
Exactly. The study, conducted by Synapse Energy Economics for Advanced Energy United, focuses on what they call the advanced policy scenario. It's ambitious but realistic, according to the researchers. They're talking about doubling the current pace of deployment for solar, wind, and storage by 2030, and then increasing that pace even further through 2035. And the payoff? $178 billion in savings, compared to sticking with the status quo.
That's a staggering number. But it's not just about the money, right? The study also emphasizes reliability. They used advanced modeling tools to show that this scenario would lead to fewer power outages, shorter durations, and fewer customers affected. That's a big deal, especially as we're seeing more extreme weather events that put stress on the grid.
Right, and that's where the added solar and battery storage come in. These aren't just about generating more power. They're about creating a more flexible and resilient grid. The batteries, for example, can store excess energy when demand is low and then release it when demand spikes. That kind of flexibility is crucial for integrating more renewables, which are inherently variable in their output.
And it's not just about large-scale renewables. The study also highlights the role of distributed energy resources, or DERs. These include things like rooftop solar panels, home battery systems, and even electric vehicles. John Gordon from Advanced Energy United made a strong case for fully leveraging these resources across the PJM region. He talked about expanding market access for DERs and creating new retail programs to compensate them for the value they provide to the grid.
That's such an important point. DERs aren't just about individual households saving money on their energy bills. They can also provide valuable services to the grid, like frequency regulation or demand response. But for that to happen, you need policies and market structures that recognize and reward their contributions. And that's one of the key takeaways from this study. It's not just about adding more renewables, it's about rethinking the entire system.
And that includes addressing some of the systemic challenges that have been holding projects back. The study points out that PJM currently has 46 gigawatts of projects with interconnection service agreements that haven't yet reached commercial operation. That's a massive backlog, and it underscores the need for reforms to streamline the interconnection process.
PJM has been working on this. They've adopted a first ready, first served cycle study method with investment milestones to prioritize the most viable projects. The idea is to expedite projects that are ready to move forward while weeding out those that aren't. But even with these reforms, there are still challenges outside of PJM's control, like state and local permitting, supply chain issues, and financing.
And that's why the study emphasizes a coordinated approach involving both PJM and the states. It's not just about what happens within PJM's purview. It's about aligning all the moving parts to create a more efficient system. And let's not forget the role of demand response in this equation. By deploying more demand response alongside the additional solar and storage, the advanced policy scenario aims to create a grid that's not only cleaner, but also more adaptable to changing conditions.
Flexibility is key here. The study's findings show that this approach doesn't just reduce costs, it also enhances reliability. That's a powerful argument for accelerating the deployment of renewables and storage. But it's also a reminder that achieving this vision will require a significant shift in how projects are financed and built.
And that's where innovation comes in. PJM is exploring ways to leverage artificial intelligence to streamline the interconnection process further. They're working with Google and Tapestry on this, which could be a game changer if it helps reduce the time and complexity involved in getting projects from the drawing board to operation.
It's exciting to see technology being used to tackle these challenges, but at the same time, it's a reminder that technology alone isn't enough. You need the right policies, market structures, and regulatory frameworks to support these advancements. That's why the studies call for a coordinated approach involving PJM, the states, and other stakeholders is so important.
Absolutely. It's a multifaceted problem that requires a multifaceted solution. And while the challenges are significant, the potential benefits are enormous. Transitioning to a cleaner, more reliable energy system in the PJM region could serve as a model for other parts of the country. It shows that with the right mix of policy, technology, and collaboration, it's possible to achieve ambitious energy goals without compromising reliability or affordability.
It's a powerful vision for the future. And while there's still a lot of work to be done, studies like this one provide a roadmap for how we can get there. It's not just about adding more renewables, it's about rethinking the entire system to make it more efficient, resilient, and sustainable.
Well said. I think that's a good note to wrap up on. The Synapse study gives us a lot to think about and hopefully a lot to act on. If there's one takeaway, it's that the challenges we face in modernizing our energy system are significant, but so are the opportunities.
Agreed. Well, that's it for this week's episode of The Solar Coaster. On behalf of Alex Herrera, we want to thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you next week. Until next time, see you in the pixels. Aloha.
Hop on the solar coaster. Come along for the ride.
Episode of The Solar Coaster is narrated using AI-generated technology, representing Anna Covert and Alex Herrera. The material presented is aggregated from publicly available solar industry news sources. All commentary reflects reported industry developments and does not constitute personal opinions, investment advice, or endorsements by the hosts or
Solar
producers.
Coaster is proudly sponsored by Sun Energy Today, redefining what solar means for business and infrastructure. We engineer and deliver large-scale clean energy solutions, from megawatt solar farms to advanced graphene storage, designed for resilience, performance, and measurable return. Sun Energy Today, built to power what's next. Learn more at sunenergytoday.com.